Hey, Renter Retires, it's Adam Schroeder here with another episode, joined as usual by Zach Lemaster, the founder and CEO of Renter Retirement. And we are joined today by the other Adam, Adam Kente. He is an executive corporate analyst at our partner company, Nevada Corporate Headquarters. They help us do a whole lot of things. We've been working with them for, Zach, how many years besides many?
Oh, many. At least
Many.
eight.
Okay.
Yeah. At least
That's
eight,
the
I think.
official determination is many years. So, Adam, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we wanted to talk today about solo Ks, kind of using them, investing with them, doing all sorts of things with them. So if you wouldn't mind, just can you give people a rundown of exactly what a solo K is? How is it different from other investment vehicles you can use? And just who is even eligible for something like this?
Yeah, so the great question. That question I always get is, should I have a self-directed IRA or a self-directed solo K? And most people are, when you got old retirement accounts, you're thinking you're stuck with stocks, bonds, mutual funds, things that are in the stock market. But the fact is, you can roll those accounts over and use those accounts to start buying rental properties and doing things that are outside the stock market. No taxes, no penalties. It's just rolling it from one plan to another. And really the difference between an IRA and a solo K, I'll share with you in a minute, but solo K is, the contribution limits are so much greater. You can contribute between $69,000 and $76,000 that you can contribute into a solo K versus an IRA. You're limited to $7,000 or $8,000 a year that you can contribute to an IRA. So the contribution limits are much higher. And usually for people that are self-employed, if you have a business, you have no full-time W-2 employees other than you or you and a spouse. And for this purpose, a full-time W-2 employee is someone that works more than 1,000 hours a year, that is over age 21, is considered a full-time employee. But assuming you have no full-time employees, the solo K is the very best option for you as a business owner. An IRA is for those of you that don't have a business. IRAs are really the option. You don't have a sponsoring company. Just like if you worked for Walmart, they sponsor a 401k plan and you're the plan participant. That's the same thing with a solo K. You are your own plan participant and you can put money in and your company can put money in. With the IRA, you don't have a business. You just have money sitting in a retirement account that you want to invest. So that's really the difference between the solo K and the IRA. But for those that qualify, the self-directed solo 401k plan has significant advantages, not only in contribution limits, but also in possible taxes that might be owed. And you might be thinking, well, taxes, I thought this is a tax deferred or a tax-free account. It is. However, when we start leveraging funds, there is a UDFI, unrelated debt financed income tax that you could get whacked with if you are leveraging funds with an IRA. So the difference, business owner, non-business owner. If you're not a business owner, you don't have self-employed income, generally we'll use an IRA. If you are a business owner, then we would go ahead and do the self-directed solo 401k.
So there's kind of two things I'm thinking about here, Adam, and thank you for the breakdown with that. This is something we've talked about in the past, but not for a while. So it's good to revisit because we're always limited in our down payments on properties. And if you're an aspiring investor that's looking to grow a portfolio, you have X amount of dollars that you want to put down on a rental property that you've saved up. And then you do that and then you hit a roadblock and you're like, well, how can I continue to expand my portfolio versus just plug and chugs, slowly saving up the next down payment for the next property. And we need to start exploring other resources to access to continually buy more real estate and expand our portfolio. And this is something that's very relevant because many people have a existing IRA or 401k that may be recategorized, and maybe this will be something you can think about moving forward as a way to expand your portfolio. So let's focus, and we can be forward thinking. I want to quiz you on setting up a business to start establishing a solo 401k. But if you're not at that point and you're someone who has a pre-existing 401k with your current or past employer or an IRA that you contributed to for many years, Can you walk us through like the steps when we talk about self-directed? Like, how does someone logistically take a 401k plan that they have with their current or past employer and actually take that to start investing in rental real estate through that?
Yeah. So if you're currently employed and you're under age 59 and a half, and it is a current employer plan that you have, you're stuck. You can't roll it over. You can't do anything until you quit the day job or retire. There's nothing I can do with the current plan. Any past retirement account, whether it is a 401k, 403b, 457, TSP, TIA CREP, any of these past retirement accounts, you can absolutely roll them over. It just takes a couple of weeks. You'll work with a self-directed custodian. We'll roll the funds over into this self-directed custodian, which will allow you to do things that are outside of stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. Now, if you called your investment advisor, like a Fidelity, for example, and say, hey, I want to self-direct my retirement account, they'll probably say to you, oh, you're already self-directed. You choose which one of these stocks, bonds, and mutual funds do you want to invest in. You're saying, yeah, I really would like to invest in rental properties. It's great. We could do that too. It's called a real estate investment trust. Works just like a stock. We can do that too. Say, now I really want to own single family homes or properties myself. And then their answer is, no, you can't do that. Well, the fact is you can do that. They just don't get paid commissions on it. And I thought it was really interesting. I watched this video from Jack Bogle, the founder of Vanguard. He did like a 60 minutes interview, and he said the 401k plan is the biggest racket ever. You put in all of the money, you bear all of the risk, and over a 50-year period, those investment companies charging their modest 2% fees end up with 70% of your money. The beauty about a self-directed account is you're not paying these ginormous fees. The fees are just a small annual fee that you're paying with a solo K or an IRA, but it does allow you to buy rental properties and working with like rent to retirement, being able to find these rentals where you're getting good returns. And now at the point when you retire, you start drawing on the funds, you just put yourself in a position that you will never run out of money. You will always have rent coming in for the rest of your life. So when we talk about setting it up, it just takes a couple of weeks. You roll it into a self-directed custodian. They allow you to do things outside the stock market, very inexpensive, very quick and easy to do. No taxes, no penalties. We're just rolling the funds over.
So you mentioned the kind of limits you can contribute on solo Ks versus self-directed and how different they are. So if you don't have a business, but you've left and you have an old 401k, do you have to roll that over into a self-directed IRA? Or since it's already a 401k, can you move it into a solo 401k and do it that way, even if you don't have a business?
Yeah, even if you don't have a business. So oftentimes you think of a business as, you have a contracting business or you're a real estate agent or something of that you have a business. Well, if we have an LLC, that maybe you have an LLC established that you're using to hold rental properties, that is a business. That would allow you to sponsor a solo 401k. I would use your LLC. It could be a disregarded LLC. It could be an LLC taxed as an S corporation. That could be the sponsoring company. So you left your employer or you've got those old accounts that are sitting around. If it's a traditional IRA or a past employer account, we can roll those into a solo K. The only thing I cannot roll into a solo K is an inherited IRA or a Roth IRA. Both of those can be self-directed to buy rental properties, but those two accounts, for some reason, they just don't allow us to roll that into a solo 401k plan. So I always start with, how much do you have? What accounts are they? And then let's see what makes sense for you in terms of rolling those over and start acquiring and building your rental portfolio using these tax-deferred or tax-free accounts.
Yeah, this is something that's interesting. We talk about having an LLC structure for liability purposes and to approach this like a business. But we seldom talk about the benefits to things like this of actually establishing a business, right? And not only do you get the asset protection, but this sets the stage for you to potentially do things like this and roll into the solo 401k. Adam, I'd like to take a step back and look big picture, just like where would this make sense for people? Let's talk about a little bit more logistics in the weeds here. One thing I've heard about previously is, okay, and this is applicable to people that have a current plan with a current employer. Okay, you can't roll that over from what we understand. One option would be potentially to just withdraw the money, right? And actually take the tax hit. And that's something we always recommend, just like running the numbers, not only on a year one analysis, but on a 5 and 10 year analysis, which someone could do on the wealth tracker on our website for free. But I think that's really important to understand, like the trajectory of your money. Is it best for you to keep it in the plan, or is it best for you to take it out, take the penalties, and invest? And we'll dive a little bit deeper into that. But first, I just want to ask you, I've heard about people taking loans against IRAs or 401ks. Can you help add clarity on what the options are, or what that picture looks like to actually lend yourself money? You can have a short-term loan or something against a current plan or an IRA. Could you talk about that?
Yeah. So if it is an IRA, if you pull money out of an IRA, you could use it, for example, for a down payment or something of that nature. But if you don't put the money back into an IRA within 60 days, you're going to pay the taxes and the 10% early penalty withdrawal. The Solo K allows you to personally borrow 50% of the value of the account up to $50,000 personally, that you can use it for whatever you want. So if you needed some extra capital for a down payment, anything of that nature, you can borrow the money from your Solo K. You do have to pay it back. It's amortized over 5 years. You have to pay yourself an interest rate of prime plus 1 or prime plus 2. So maybe you pay yourself 9 or 10% interest. It's a great option if you needed some additional capital to help cover the down payment on a property that you're going to buy personally. So if you are over age 59 and a half, you need to check, because 99.9% of the time, if you're over 59 and a half years old, you're allowed to do an in-service rollover. Even though you're still with that employer, you're still making contributions, you can roll those funds out of your employer plan into a Solo K or IRA if you're over 59 and a half. If you're below 59 and a half, that's where we have some restrictions on what you can and can't do in terms of rolling things over.
So there is a potential option to take a loan against the Solo 401k and possibly an even shorter term loan on the IRA. I think my goal is to just make sure that the audience understands all the options, because this is somewhat of a complicated topic. And there's a lot of excellent options to use your retirement vehicle to expand your real estate portfolio, but certainly working with a professional like yourself just to understand all the options and what makes the most sense for you on an individual basis, I think is very important to understand. So let's talk about the logistics of actually investing. So you have someone that has done this, they've rolled over into a Solo 401k from a pre-existing plan, or they set up a business or whatever the case, or an IRA even. Like, what are the logistical steps that look like buying rental properties, and what are some of the restrictions if you're buying within the account? To be specific, I know that you have to use non-recourse debt, which often is upwards of like 50% down payments, 30 to 50% down payments. It's a non-recourse loan is where you're not personally guaranteeing it. So it's a safer loan for you, more risky for the banks. Therefore, they require more down payment on the loan, but it is a way you can use leverage through the retirement vehicle. You don't have to, right? Depending on how much you have. And then I do believe that the majority of the income from the property needs to go back into the IRA to grow tax defer, to then also reinvest. I mean, talk to us about some of these and maybe add some clarity points if I misspoke on anything.
No, you're right on. So when we set up the self-directed account, what we like to do to protect you is we set it up where you have a special purpose LLC that is owned by your Solo 401k plan or owned by the IRA plan, but managed by you. You now have checkbook control over those funds, where when you find a property that it makes sense to buy, get out your checkbook and write a check or wire the funds in. That is now an asset of your retirement account. And there's some really basic rules the IRS has. When we're buying property, the investments that you make have to be used for the benefit of your retirement account. Can't be for your own personal benefit. So the IRS has a publication 4970 IRC section 4975 where they talk about prohibited transactions and what you cannot do. And they really have nothing in there about real estate. Can it be done? Absolutely. They just have examples on it. For example, if you wanted to buy a rental, you absolutely can. You just can't rent that property out to anyone that's part of your vertical lineage. You cannot rent that house to mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, kids, and grandkids. You can rent the house out to brother, sister, cousin, uncle. Anyone outside the vertical lineage is okay. I have some people that like to buy Airbnbs where they'll buy a house and put it on Airbnb. That's fine, but you can't stay there. You can't stay there. Mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, kids, and grandkids can't stay there. If you have a child going into college and you think, well, I'll buy a rental and let my kid live there. Can't do that with your IRA or solo K because it is personally benefiting someone that's part of your vertical lineage. So really basic rules, and the money that comes back all has to go back to the retirement account for the benefit of your retirement account. Now, you talked about the non-recourse loans, which is a great option. Traditionally, we buy a 30-year, or we want to get a 30-year fixed rate mortgage when we're buying a rental property, usually. And that requires a personal guarantee, and you put 20% down and off you go. However, with the retirement account, no personal guarantees. They can't look at your tax returns. They can't look at your credit. All they look at is what is the value of that house, which can be a huge advantage for you because all they're going to do is say if the appraisal comes in at 200, the bank would give you a loan of 50% loan to value. So you got to put 50% down. And now the beauty of this is all the money that comes in, the positive cash flow, you're just going to take that and pay off that mortgage. And for most people, we can get those mortgages paid off within 5 to 7 years' time. And now the house is free and clear. And if you're in that position where you're going to be retiring, you're looking at, okay, well, when I retire, how much money am I going to need? Owning these rentals is such a great option. You're putting yourself in a position that you will never run out of money. That's really the kind of the rules. The money has to be used for the benefit of the retirement account. It must be a non-recourse loan. I think, Zach, you have there are a handful of lenders that you're able to share that banks that will do the non-recourse loans, like the Wells Fargos and these big companies. They typically don't do the non-recourse loans. So there are specific lenders which you have access to where our clients can have non-recourse lenders that will loan money on the value of the property, not looking at your personal credit.
Yeah, that's correct. We have a whole laundry list of lenders that offer all types of loans, non-recourse loans being one of them, all depending on the goals. We have plenty of clients that utilize this strategy to help scale their portfolio and diversify their retirement account. One thing I recently learned that I think is very important from an asset protection standpoint is that retirement accounts are protected accounts. There's really, as far as like creditors and lawsuits, bankruptcies, like they can't touch a retirement account. So there's really quite a bit of asset protection within the retirement account. That's maybe more important to some people, but something to be conscious of. How does, Adam, my next question pertains to the sale of the property. Let's say someone holds a property in their retirement account and great, they use the cash flow to pay the loan off in 5 to 7 years, as you mentioned. And all of a sudden, the cash flow skyrockets on it. And they're really building out a great retirement picture that they can start to withdraw, in retirement age or whatever their ultimate plan is, and live off that cash flow. Other than that, it's just compounding in the retirement account, which they could, again, leverage again and just continue to scale. But let's say one of these properties just skyrockets in value, triples in value over a few years, and they think maybe it's time to sell that, reinvest it. How does that work? Are you subject to capital gains? Do you 1031 in the account? How do you keep rolling that and scaling it if you sell one of the properties in the account?
Yeah. So the great thing is whether it's a Roth account, which is tax free because a Roth account, when you pull it out, there is no taxes, or you have a traditional account, which is tax deferred. When you sell that asset, there is no taxes when you sell the property. So now you got a chunk of cash that you can use to buy more property, or you want to take a trip around the world. You can pull the cash out. There is no taxes due when you sell the property. You're only paying taxes when you take a distribution. So when you get that point in your life where you're ready to start taking distributions, that's when you would pay the taxes appropriately on whatever money you're pulling out of the retirement account. And obviously, if it's a Roth account, you pull that money out, there is no taxes.
But if you buy property for 200 and you sell for 400, that $200,000 of equity gain, that has to still be within the retirement account, correct?
Correct.
You can reinvest it. You can continue to grow and scale it if that's what you want to do. You can take a distribution. There may or may not be taxes subject at that point in time, but it continue to grow tax-free or tax-deferred within the account based on how you set it up.
Exactly.
Got it.
So are there any, you mentioned kind of not paying the taxes in that respect. A lot of times people are, buying the real estate to offset, and get the tax benefits that come along with it in a standard situation. So are the quote unquote only benefits tax wise being that whenever you sell it, you don't get a hit with the capital gains and your cash flow, you're not taxed until you pull it out? Not saying that's not a good tax benefit, but in terms of like the day-to-day until you actually start removing money from your account, are there any other tax benefits that come along with it?
Well, it's an important thing to note is when you put money into a traditional account, depending on how much you make, you generally will get a tax deduction when you put the money in. If you put $30,000 into the Sell OK plan, that's $30,000 that is not part of your taxable income that you're paying taxes on. With an IRA, you're putting in the $7,000 or $8,000 you're putting into an IRA. Depending on if you make too much money, you don't get a tax deduction. Otherwise, you get a deduction when you put the money in. But what people have to realize is the power of tax deferred or tax-free growth. And the example I love to use, if you took $1 and you double it every year for the next 20 years, and every year you paid in 35% in tax between state, federal, Social Security, and Medicare, 35%. At the end of a 20-year period, you would have a little over $22,000 in that account. Not bad. Take the same dollar, double it every year for the next 20 years, and pay no taxes. At the end of 20 years, you would have over $1 million in that account. The power of tax-deferred and tax-free growth is incredible. That is a huge tax advantage for you and your family.
But Adam, what if you have to pay 20% tax on that $1 million? You're basically down to that 20 grand initially, right? I think
not even close.
Well,
so
it's an important thing to look at it as you have these retirement accounts and you're in a tax deferred environment. The trick is you got to make wise investments that allow that assets to grow and appreciate. And through doing that, that's what's going to build your wealth long term.
No, this is a super important point, and thank you for using that math example. I think this is something, if someone's having a hard time or struggling understanding this, get online and just run a simple calculation, right? There's calculators out there that will show you tax-deferred growth, or you can just use simple math, and look at paying the taxes up front. That is the most important thing. That is one of the strategies that the wealthy use to compound and build wealth. And this is how people get wealthy, is tax deferred growth. I mean, this same concept would apply to life insurance, to selling real estate and doing things like 1031 exchanges, doing cost segregation studies, doing just depreciation in general, deferred sales trusts, which we haven't really covered extensively, but we will as an alternative to a 1031. It's all about playing the tax game. And in every scenario, to your math example, anytime you can keep money and invest it, we're not talking about perpetually avoiding taxes forever, which is a possibility in some scenarios. Like the 1031, you use the term swap till you drop, where your children get a step up basis and those deferred taxes are never paid. But generally speaking, in your lifetime, if you can avoid paying taxes today to actually invest that money to earn income and an interest rate on, and then reinvest that and compound that over time, it makes a dramatic difference. That's how you become wealthy, right? I mean, that's kind of, and real estate and all the ancillary tools around real estate allow you to do that in many, many ways. So I love that you went through that math example, because that is extremely powerful. Any way you can save your money now and reinvest it, whether or not, at any point in time in the future paying taxes, you're going to come out ahead. regardless of where capital gains are at that point in time. So anyways, I digress, but let's get back on track. I had another question for you, Adam, around, it's slipping my mind because Adam, take the next question while I think about what.
So Adam, you came up and you have a little presentation you put together that you wanted to show us about the solo 401ks and the self-directed IRAs. You want to get to that now?
Yeah. So it's really simple in understanding the difference between the self-directed solo K and a self-directed IRA. And with the solo K, you'll see we have this blue triangle here, LLC, taxed as an S corp. That could be a disregarded LLC that becomes the sponsoring company of your new solo 401k plan. Any of those old retirement accounts or IRA, traditional IRA, we would roll those funds over, and you'll see the oval there, the solo 401k plan. That represents your new solo 401k. Below that, we have this solo K LLC. It is a special purpose LLC that is owned by the 401k, managed by you. You now have checkbook control over the funds. And, Zach talked about the fact that the IRAs and 401ks are protected, where if you got sued personally, they can't touch your IRA or your solo K. But you would have liability owning the property, and therefore having either a Nevada or a Wyoming LLC established to own those rentals that are held by your retirement account really provides you the very best legal protection. Now, if you're not a business owner, or if you had an inherited IRA or a Roth IRA, and we can't roll those into a solo K, then we've got the square over here, which is the self-directed IRA plan. And again, I'd set up a special purpose LLC owned by the IRA, managed by you. You now have checkbook control over those funds that you can use to go out and start buying the rental properties. So I wanted to kind of illustrate that as the difference between the two. IRA does not have a sponsoring company. A solo K does. Like I said, the limits are big. And these numbers are great to see. So 2024 contribution limits with an IRA, you can only put in $7,000 or $8,000. And when you start making too much money, you can't put money into a Roth. The solo K, you can put between $69,000 and $76,500 as contributions. Big difference. The IRA, you cannot borrow money from it. Like I say, if you take money out, if you don't put it back within 60 days, you're paying taxes on it. Versus the solo K, you can borrow 50% of the value of the account up to $50,000. No restriction on how you use the funds. All right. No restrictions whatsoever. The IRA, you have this little tax that they charge you called the UDFI, unrelated debt financed income tax. And a great example that I want to share, I have a client that was getting ready to retire, and he was 2 months away from turning 65 years old. And he sat down with this guy at Fidelity. He had $600,000 in his 401k plan. And they figured out that he was going to need about $7,000 a month to live on. He said, Adam, I didn't expect that much, but my wife has very expensive doctor's visits and prescription drugs. My primary mortgage still isn't paid for yet, and $7,000 is what we're going to need. Well, the guy at Fidelity said, you start drawing out $7,000 a month, your $600,000 401k plan is going to last for 10, maybe 15 years. And I looked at him, I said, okay, then what? He said, well, Adam, then I want to be 75 or 80 years old. I'll be damn lucky if they hire me as a greeter at Walmart. So this is where he's looking at buying some rental properties. So we rolled those funds over. He ended up buying 7 rental properties, cash flowing just under $7,000 a month that he was able to do. And remember, he was retiring in 2 months, so he needed the cash to live on. Now, if he would have come to me 5 years earlier and said, okay, I'm retiring in 5 years, we could have took his $600,000, leveraging those funds using the non-recourse loan. You could have bought $1.2 million worth of rentals, 50% down on each one. Now, instead of having 7 rentals, he could have had a total of 14 rentals. And instead of collecting $7,000 a month, he'd have been collecting $14,000 a month. Well, if you do that with an IRA, you leverage funds with an IRA, you are subject to a tax called the UDFI. It very quickly climbs to 37%. The solo K is exempt. you do not pay the UDFI tax. So it's an incredible difference between an IRA and a solo K in terms of how much you can put in, not having to pay the UDFI tax, being able to borrow from the account if needed. And there's no point, a Roth IRA, when you start making too much money, you can't put the money into a Roth account versus a solo K. No matter how much you make, there's always the Roth bucket that you can put money in with a solo 401k. So if you're one of those self-employed individuals and you're making money as an independent contractor effectively, that solo K is such a great tool for you and your family. So I just want to share that with you, kind of understanding those differences. But if you have a Roth IRA or an inherited IRA, those cannot be rolled into a solo K. Those will just be self-directed accounts. So did that help?
Yeah. Now, are you limited to one solo K? I mean, like if you're an employee and you work for different companies, you can have a 401k with every single one. Now, if you have, you're saying if your real estate was all in one, in one LLC, you could have one there. Well, if you have a different LLC with a different real estate company, can you have multiples going on so that you don't have, 400,000 wrapped up in one solo K that you can only get 50,000 of loans for? Or how do you structure that?
Oh, that's a super good question. So that you can have multiple solo 401k plans. Maybe you work for an employer that you have a 401k there and you're self-employed and you might be involved with several different businesses. You could have multiple 401k plans, one with your employer, one with different companies that you own, and each of those plans you can borrow $50,000 from if needed. Now, they do aggregate your employee contributions, the amount you're putting in as an employee. They say, okay, if you're putting in $24,000 through your day job, you can't also put in $24,000 from your own companies. The employer match, the match portion is, I think this year is $43,000 or $44,000 that your company can match. That can be with every company that you have. So you can really put a lot of money in. And this isn't just for you, it's you and your spouse. So both you and your spouse could borrow 50% of the value of the account. Both you and your spouse can contribute $69,000 to $76,500, depending on your age. So that's an awesome way to look at it. Yes, you can have multiple 401k plans that you can contribute to and use for investing.
Yeah, this is great stuff, Adam. I appreciate you breaking this down, especially using an actual concrete example. What I forgot I was going to mention previously is big picture, where does this make sense for people? And obviously everyone is in a different position, and having a discussion with a professional like yourself on an individual basis is extremely important to understand what your options are and how this applies to you. But generally what we see when we see people doing this, they're kind of in one of these different categories. They have a current IRA or 401k that they want to diversify or simply just buy real estate with. Or there's someone who has a high tax, they're in a high tax bracket. They likely have a business to some degree, or they're looking to start a business to initiate one of these plans to then contribute to the plan to have those upfront tax benefits, and then to buy real estate as part of the retirement picture. If you're a person that can't qualify for real estate professional status or do accelerated depreciation or get the immediate tax benefits of buying rental real estate up front, and that is being phased out, of course, over time anyways, but this is a way of potentially, if you can set up the solo 401k account being self-employed and have your business or have your rental property business, whatever the case is, this may be a way for you to get tax benefits up front and then still buy real estate and continue. So either one of those scenarios, but a lot of people have current or past IRA or 401k plans that they're really not doing much about and probably not paying much attention to either, just letting it sit in the market. So this is a way for you to take control and make smart moves with your money and plan for retirement accordingly. So just my 2 cents on the matter. But Adam, let's talk about how we can have people connect with Adam and find out more about how they can invest in their retirement vehicle.
Yeah, so the most important thing is every situation is different. What works for one person might not work for another. Everyone has different dollar amounts, different investment goals. I do want to point out that if you're looking at possibly self-directing your funds, you have a past retirement account, you don't have to roll all of it over. You can do a partial rollover, roll over some of that money and use it to start buying rentals. And once you see how well it works, you can always add to it later on. So these are things that are fluid that can change based on your situation and your investment goals. Because everybody is unique and different, I always recommend schedule an appointment here with our professionals at NCH. Let us talk with you about what you're doing, how much money you have, what you're looking to do with those funds, and then we can work together to come up with a good plan for you. I think, Adam, you're going to have a link there that they can schedule an appointment with NCH if they need help with any of these things.
Yep, absolutely. It'll be there in the show notes, or if you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be right below. But you can also schedule a call with Nevada Corporate Headquarters straight through the Rent to Retirement website. That's at renttoretirement.com. You can see all the inventory that you can utilize these non-recourse loans for your investment portfolios through right there, Rent to Retirement. And don't forget, if you have any questions, whether, this, I'm assuming this topic brought up some questions for people and you would like them answered in a future episode, email podcast@renttoretirement.com and we will get your questions answered on a future episode. That's podcast@renttoretirement.com. But as always, you can schedule a time to talk with one of our investment strategists and we can help you figure all of this out by just heading over to renttoretirement.com. Adam, thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate the insight you brought our listeners. To everybody else, thank you so much for spending the time to educate yourselves today. We'll talk to you on the next episode.
Thanks for watching the Rent to Retirement YouTube channel. Check out some of our other videos, like this one, or this one here.